Now, it's been reported that the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's top advisor, Dominic Cummings, who said he was going to step down before Christmas, has in fact left Downing Street tonight for the very last time. Cummings was a chief architect of the Brexit campaign and became a divisive figure inside the Conservative government after Johnson took office. His position weakened earlier this year when he violated national lockdown rules by driving across England after testing positive for COVID-19. With more on the wider implications, I'm joined now by EU Affairs blogger John Worth, who is in Berlin. Thanks very much for joining us here. John, so instrumental he was to the UK government's procedures, to the way it handled things. If Cummings is confirmed to have left for the final time, what sort of impact could this have on Boris Johnson's premiership going forward?
It leaves Boris Johnson very exposed. That's the most important thing. Dominic Cummings was essentially a defence for Boris Johnson. He gave Boris Johnson, notably someone who can never really concentrate, some kind of decision-making ability, some discipline, if you like. And so therefore, facing a very crucial week next week with regard to the future of Brexit, it leaves Boris Johnson even more incapable of taking decisions than has been the case up until now. It's also a sign that there are big personal tensions that have been going on within 10 Downing Street following the resignation of Kane, Dominic Cummings' colleague, earlier in the week. So it shows there's plenty of infighting going on in Downing Street just now.
What could it mean for Europe as a whole, though? We know that the relationships between the United Kingdom, officials within the UK government, have been frosty at best with some of their European counterparts. We've got the transition period for Brexit about to expire. It's less than 50 days now. If Cummings goes, would we see maybe a warming of the relationships with the EU?
That's what people in Brussels are hoping, but I'm yet to be convinced that that would be so. If we'd been having this conversation just a week ago, it would have sounded rather similar, because ultimately a decision needs to be taken here. Does the UK want a deal on its future relationship with the European Union or not? And that decision ultimately lies with Boris Johnson himself. He can take the opinions of plenty of others, including Dominic Cummings or Munira Miza, who's his policy chief, for example. But ultimately, that decision lies with Johnson and with Johnson alone. And as far as we can tell, Johnson himself has not come to a conclusive decision in that regard about how he approaches the future of Brexit. So medium term, this might be seen as a turning point. It might lead to a softer approach from Boris Johnson. But we need decisions now. And ultimately, therefore, I can't see that this will change the outcome of what will happen with regard to Brexit and the decisions needed next week.
So we can't see a change in the current situation, but I'm going to ask you, it's always dangerous to do this, but get your forecasting skills out like Dominic Cummings would, his super forecasting skills. If you could channel some of those thoughts, where do you think we're going to be in the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
I think Britain is going to face, on 1st of January, is going to face some chaos anyway, because the British government is ill prepared for the Brexit that's on the way, particularly with regard to what will happen at the Channel ports at Dover and at Folkestone. So some disruption is certain there in any case. For me at the moment, it's 50-50 whether Britain is going to leave with a deal or face a no-deal scenario. Basically, the consequences short term will be more severe if it's a no deal, but nevertheless, that's perhaps easier for Downing Street to communicate to the British population because they can point the finger at Brussels. Look, all of this crisis that we face, it was all the fault of Michel Barnier and the European Commission. If Boris does do a deal and then there is still chaos, that's actually harder for him to sell to the British public. So it's still on a knife edge, and whatever happens, there's going to be disruption ahead, which will obviously be compounded by Britain's problems with coronavirus too.
John Worth, always good to get your thoughts. Thank you very much. Joining us there from Berlin.